Well, 30 minutes was just not enough for a trade proposal show. So here's part 2 of Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Are you interested in any players from Orlando? Wendell Carter comes to mind. Markelle Fultz, I'm certainly not interested in. There's honestly nobody on Orlando I'm interested in who realistically would be available for a trade. Anyone on the Magic roster that catches your interest?
No, not really.
Yeah, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter. I'm sorry, that's just not enough. I know the money works, but that's a huge pass.
Do you have any thoughts while people are dropping this in the chat on Spencer Dinwiddie? Because I don't know if one person's dropping him or if multiple people are over and over again. But what do you think about Spencer Dinwiddie? And what are his numbers? Or what would I would say? I like him too. What I want to know what the trade machine says about Dinwiddie, because I like him.
So Spencer Dinwiddie next year, it's the last year of his deal. He makes $20 million. So if it's just a pool for Dinwiddie swap, Brooklyn would actually have to include something else in there, whether that's Nick Claxton. I don't know if they would. I would love Nick Claxton. Whether it's Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills. I don't think Patty Mills would be enough. Look, I think Spencer Dinwiddie would be fantastic. The question is, if you make that trade, it would be essentially Jordan Poole for Dinwiddie and a second piece on that roster to make the salaries work. Let's say for the sake of argument, Seth Curry makes too much. So it can't be those two. I would love Seth Curry on the Warriors, by the way. He's an unrestricted free agent as well. So that's a non-starter there. So it would have to be Dinwiddie. And if the Nets threw in Nick Claxton, who's going to make only $9.6 million next year before becoming a free agent, sign me up. Yeah, I would do that in a second, because you're getting size from Claxton. Dinwiddie is an underrated offensive player, solid defensive player. And if you're getting Nick Claxton in that deal as well, hell yeah, let's do it. For the people saying Mikal Bridges, by the way, I don't think the Nets are going to move him. I actually had a conversation yesterday with the Locked On Nets host. We were just spitballing some fantasy trades between our two teams. And he said that the Nets will not move Mikal Bridges. He's one of their core fundamental pieces. And if you are going to move Mikal Bridges, it's got to be for an all-star type player. Jordan Poole will not be enough. So I don't know, Kylen, what do you think? The numbers would work if you did Jordan Poole straight up and maybe threw in a future first-round pick to entice the Nets to also give up Nick Claxton. Jordan Poole for Spencer Dinwiddie and Nick Claxton. I'm all in on that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you were able to pair those two up, and like you said, the skill sets between Claxton and Dinwiddie, I'm not opposed to. Someone just said Dinwiddie in the chat is worse than DiVincenzo.
No, they're different. They're different.
Yeah, they're different. But I mean, he does also handle the ball, and I think that he would be a possible nice addition to the Warriors second unit. And you have to realize DiVincenzo's gone, so the idea of comparing and contrasting, like, the Warriors aren't going to keep him, so there's no way to exactly you're not going to exactly replace him. I like the move. I like the move.
Yeah, and I don't know why Art Music is hating in regards to Spencer Dinwiddie playing defense. That's literally like what his number one skill set is. I mean, if you didn't watch him play on the Mavericks and you didn't notice their defense plummet when Dinwiddie was traded in that Kyrie Irving trade, dude, he plays D. That's like his specialty. He aspired at one point to be a point guard version of Draymond Green. Lil Panda asked, what about Cam Johnson? No, you got to be realistic here. The Nets will not give up Cam Johnson. He's considered a part of their future. He only makes $2.2 million next year, so he's a steal right now. I'm sorry, that's Cam Thomas, actually. Cam Johnson makes, where's his number on here? Cam Johnson makes $17.6 million next year. I'm sorry. But regardless, you're going to have to throw in a lot to get him. Like, Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges are two virtual untouchables for the Nets. So we're trying to be in the realm of reality here.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I love Bridges too, but I don't think there's any way that happens,
Agreed. Now, what about the trade that a lot of people were asking? Let's touch on this. Jordan Poole for DeAndre Ayton, disgruntled center on the Phoenix Suns. I would love it. I mean, but here's the problem, and let me know if you agree with this or not. And first of all, the salaries work. I'm sorry. DeAndre Ayton makes $32 million next year. Jordan Poole 28.7. That is close enough for the trade to work. And if it was a direct swap, I don't think the Suns go for that. I mean, look, in theory, Jordan Poole could be a replacement for Chris Paul. Maybe that's a selling point. And look, if the Suns are in on it, on that trade idea, yeah, green light. I love it. DeAndre Ayton, I think, would actually be a great fit for the Warriors. I just don't think, and yeah, AC, look, nobody's perfect, right? None of these trades are perfect. Yes, DeAndre Ayton has disappeared in the postseason, but just like Jordan Poole, maybe a change of scenery is what these players need. Maybe a coach who actually connects with the player. But I love the idea of DeAndre Ayton. I do. I don't think the Suns go for it, though. What are your thoughts, Kylen?
I agree. I don't know that the Suns go for it, but I like the idea. I mean, I think similarly to, like you said, to Jordan Poole, that, DeAndre Ayton maybe just needs a change of scenery. There were definitely reports out there, and it seems to be apparent that he's had some moments where he's disgruntled. I know you mentioned disgruntled. I don't know big picture if he was unhappy the whole season. I don't know him, but I think that based on, all of the reporting that's out there, I remember I saw, I can't remember which game, he got yanked down the stretch of one of the Suns postseason games, and he like stormed off the bench or something like that. So I think that, this may be a situation where he's unhappy where he is. And I don't know that it's been a perfect fit for him. And it was weird even in the off season when they were trying to figure out what was going to happen and what they were going to pay him. So I don't know. I think there's something amiss there. And so that's where I think that maybe it would be a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he had to change a scenery, like you said, a fresh start. And I mean, bottom line, he's 7 feet. Like, the Warriors need size. I mean, I would love for the Warriors to pick up a 7-footer with any kind of skill. And DeAndre Ayton is much more ready to contribute than James Wiseman, who everyone was saying at the beginning of last season, oh, well, he's going to be our contributor. He's going to be the guy that can, supplement minutes. I mean, DeAndre Ayton with the Warriors, I mean, they can continue to start Kevon Looney. He doesn't even need to be a starter. So I don't know. The critiques of him playing not well in the postseason or disappearing or whatever may be fair. But again, this is someone that, could even come in the second unit and play, whatever situational minutes. I would be all for it, but I don't see that happening. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know. What are they going to do with Ayton? I guess that's kind of my question that I'm thinking right now. Cause like I said, it just seemed like that whole situation has been a miss, but they did give him that massive contract. What is it? What is his exact numbers again?
He makes 32 a year. So his contract, it's bad, but so is Jordan Poole's. So, it's, and you're not going to get a perfect deal for Jordan Poole. Okay. Like he's not attractive enough to bring back the ideal player. So you're going to have to, make some compromise here. You're going to have to kind of, accept, a player that maybe will not be exactly what you want. Jordan Poole for Tyrese Maxey and DeAnthony Melton. Give me please pass along what you're smoking. Kuminga for Paul George. No, the Clippers would not sign up for that. Of course. I mean, if you're going to trade Kuminga, I'd love that, but the salaries don't work either. Let me see what other trades here. We talked about Nick Claxton. I'd be all for it. In fact, this trade it actually is exactly what we were talking about right here. Spencer Dinwiddie and Nick Claxton for Jordan Poole. I don't mind it. If Nick Claxton is included, I say yes, go for it, because again, Spencer Dinwiddie, he's not a detriment. Like he's not hurting your team. And he can play the point. He can score. He's been a 20-plus point per game scorer, just like Jordan Poole. But unlike Jordan Poole, he can actually play defense. So that's not a bad trade. I actually would be all for that. Naz Reid has come. I think Naz Reid, though, is a free agent. Is that correct? Do you have any information on that? I'm looking this up right now. Oh, here it is right here.
I was going to say, maybe.
Naz Reid is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So I would love him as well. The Warriors have no salary cap space to get any free agents of worth. So it's a nice fantasy, but not in reality at all. I'm trying to say did we actually like literally go through all the trade proposals? Is there anything in the chat that you saw, Kylen, that we should discuss? I think we got all of them. That was in the thread.
I think so.
All right. So what this is from this discussion, what it comes down to is Jordan Poole for Nick Claxton and Spencer Dinwiddie. Okay. Jordan Poole for Kristaps Porzingis. Possible. And then Jordan Poole for DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. If the Suns agree to it, let's do it. I think that's it. That's at least addressing everyone else's questions on trade. So any final thoughts, Kylen? We went long today. Damn it.
Oh no. I mean, we can keep going. Sorry. We can keep going.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's keep going. Then. Yeah, might as well.
For another 20 minutes.
I'll make it into two shows.
I'll ask you about. Can I toss one to you? I mean, what do you think? And I don't know that I saw this anywhere in particular, but I think I did read about this somewhere. Someone was conjecturing on. Would you consider trading to the Utah Jazz anyone for Lauri Markkanen? A, or B, Kelly Olynyk? So are you sold on the fact? I mean, strike while the iron's hot, and with him earning that most improved player award, I mean, if you were going to get something in return for Markkanen, it would be a good time. I really like him, so that's the reason why I say it. And like I said, I read that in an article somewhere. But you know, with his 3-point shooting, man, that would be tough to stop. And then also someone else mentioned Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah. So here's the thing: Lauri Markkanen is not going anywhere. The Jazz love him as much as we do. He makes great money in terms from the Jazz perspective. He's only making $17 million a year for the next 2 years. So no, I would love that as well. I think he would be a phenomenal asset for the Warriors. But no, I don't see a chance in hell. And then Kelly Olynyk, he was brought up in trade discussions last year. He makes $12 million. So to make that trade work with the Warriors you'd have, if let's say hypothetically it's for Jordan Poole, you need to get some other players from Utah, whether it's Talen Horton-Tucker, who I have no interest in. Jordan Clarkson. I don't know if the Jazz would give him up. I don't know if the Warriors want him. I think he would be an awesome second scorer. We saw in the chat earlier how Steph needs a second scorer to help him out. Agreed. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Yeah, so I don't know if you can make it work in that regard with that second player for Kelly Olynyk. Yeah, why not? And then people bring up Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I was going to say, I keep seeing that in the chat.
No, I mean, here's the problem. The Timberwolves probably won't give him up. And even if they do, they're going to want back a haul, right? They're not going to just give him up for nothing. And so the Warriors would realistically have to give him Jordan Poole, would have to give him Jonathan Kuminga. Karl Anthony Towns doesn't play defense. But again, in theory, Jordan Poole and Kuminga for Karl Anthony Towns would work. You'd have to maybe throw in a pick. I guess the question is, do you want that trade from the Warriors' perspective? And do you think Minnesota would make that trade? What do you think?
So what I was going to say is I saw on, I think it was Bleacher Report, someone wrote about a projected trade between the Warriors and Timberwolves where the Warriors receive Cat in exchange for Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and the number 19 pick in this year's draft. I don't know if you think that would be worth it.
So can you say it again one more time?
So it would be the Golden State Warriors ship off Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, PBJ, and that number 19 pick they have in this year's draft.
For Towns?
Yes.
I would do it. I'd absolutely do it. Because here's the thing. If you get Karl Anthony Towns, you're getting a 7-footer who is a lights out shooter from three.
Yeah.
So he's a stretch big. He solves your rebounding issues. He solves your second score issues. Now the negative for Karl Anthony Towns is defensively, he can be a major liability, but you need a center. Nearly every center in the game is going to be a liability, especially if you want them to bring an offensive skill set with them. I'd still do it in a second. Absolutely. I mean, could you imagine this will be your starting lineup if you make that trade? Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, even though Klay probably should go to the bench, but for now, let's just roll this. Steph, Klay, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Karl Anthony Towns as your starting center. That's your starting five. And then Looney comes off the bench. So all of a sudden your bench is a little more bolstered. And then, you have Moses Moody still on the team. And then you got to, hopefully find some good veterans. But I would do that. Absolutely. Some people, Jesus, our music. Come on, man. Kylen, is it a compliment to be called a hot old dude? Stop it. Stop it. So some people don't like so Bruce Morrow is hating on it. Ray Lang is hating on the idea. So some people wouldn't like Karl Anthony Towns, but yeah, I would do it. Karl Anthony Towns is a special player. And I think with the Warriors, who would hopefully bring out the best in him, yeah, I would subscribe to that. I would 100% like it.
I mean, I think you're talking about adding a big who can shoot. I mean, that's the biggest thing to me. You know what I mean? A big man who can score in different ways and hit threes, I think would be so massive, because we know how important it is for the Warriors in their motion offense and everything they do to stretch the floor. So not only are you adding size, but also adding a big who can shoot. I mean, the problem is that I do think that his lack in defensive skill set would potentially be an issue, because I've kind of advocated for more of a rim protector, because I also think that against some of the stretch fives that Looney is a defensive liability. So that's the only thing. It's like, well, you got Looney and you got Cat, and neither one of them are going to be shutting down, the ADs of the world, or, certain other, centers with certain skill sets. So, I mean, maybe that's the only downside. But someone said in the chat that he's a loser and a whiner. So
I know. Again, I mean,
whatever you say, Ray.
You can't make everyone happy. It's just it's part of the deal. And then just to add as well, we'll touch on prospective free agents next week. That's going to obviously warrant its own show. Lockdown, by the way, had their mock draft yesterday, and honestly, I'm going to throw the name out for who I picked for the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if it's going to raise any interest from anyone, but I went with Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's a shooting guard who's big. He's 6'6", 215. So even though he's a guard with the Warriors, he'd probably be a power forward. But he can shoot. He can play defense. He's a great two-way player. Part of the reason why he's going to probably drop in the draft this year is because he started last season with a minor back injury. He also fits the bill in terms of he was once a hot high school prospect, which fits the bill in terms of what Myers typically looks for in draft picks. The player I really wanted, but he was drafted before the 19th pick in the mock draft I was involved in, was Derek Lively II, 7'2", 215 pounds from Duke. And he's an athletic highlight machine. He could turn into a solid player. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you do. That's why.
Sorry, I'm distracted by people who are being gross in the chat. Everybody,
oh no!
Calm it down over there.
Okay, yeah. Anyone I should block, Kylen?
I don't know. I don't want to get into blocking people.
All right, sounds good. Let's be respectful, folks. Be respectful, please. Yeah, let's maintain a code of conduct.
I don't have any strong thoughts on your draft pick or in general the draft with the Warriors, because my big thing is that I don't think the Warriors should be bringing in any young players. Like, I'm done with it. The Warriors do not need to draft anyone. This needs to be a player who's drafted that's going to be on the move quickly, or on the move beforehand. But if they do end up, moving forward and making the pick, I think this is someone who's got to be thrown into the mix and shipped off, because kind of what I said in yesterday's episode is my feeling. The Warriors cannot add another developmental project to the mix. I mean, last season, 6 players with Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, who were all super young and needed work. And my dogs agree with that, and they feel very strongly about it. So it's hard for me to get into basically who the Warriors should be drafting or shouldn't draft. I don't think they should be adding any young players. I don't think they need a rookie. They've already got so many young guys that Kerr struggled to develop and play as it is.
Yeah.
Why would we do this again? I mean, Ryan Rollins' roster was a wasted spot this past season. You talk about the fact that they signed Anthony Lamb late in the season, didn't play in the postseason. That was a waste. Andre Iguodala didn't play all season, couldn't play in the postseason. That was a waste. PBJ barely played with the Warriors, mostly played in Santa Cruz. That, to me, these are wasted spots with Steph Curry, who is, in the twilight of his prime. You cannot be wasting all these roster spots. So that's just my whole tangent about it. Like, they can't bring in another rookie. I don't think. Fair. No, and the other thing, and I'm going to go on another tangent, since we have time on this episode. It bothers me. It bothers me to no end that the NBA draft now is only and all about drafting based on potential and basically drafting these 18, 19-year-olds that are completely unfinished projects. Like, I feel like it's taboo now to draft a player who's played 4 years of college basketball. It's like looked at this huge downside if a guy is 22 years old. And I feel like it's just turned into this thing where everyone's over analyzing, oh, well, what the potential of a certain player could be or the ceiling of a certain player could be, but it's always 18 and 19-year-olds. Like, I don't know. Sorry. That's my other thing. It's like, why can we never draft someone who's played a couple years of college basketball? It always has to be these one and done players. And specifically, that's exactly what the Warriors have brought in the last couple seasons with the James Wiseman, who barely played in college. Jonathan Kuminga played at the G League Ignite, didn't play in college. I mean, Moses Moody did play, but still, came in at 19 years old. Is the whole one and done culture that's out there now. So like I said, that's just kind of a separate thing. But that's why all these guys are such huge projects, because coming in after a year of college, there's a ton of work to be done in refining the skill set. And I think there's a big difference when you see a player who's played 4 years in college versus 1 year or 3 games, etc. So sorry, that's just my rant.
No, it's a good tangent. And to be honest, like that's what the Warriors were doing for a long time. 10 years ago, Stephen Curry was drafted after his 3rd year. Same with Klay Thompson. Draymond Green finished all 4 years. The Moses Moody pick was not supposed to be Moody. It was actually who the Warriors wanted was Chris Duarte, who was 24 years old when he came in. And so the Warriors really wanted him for that exact reason. He would have been NBA ready, but the Pacers took him 1 pick before Moses Moody. Now, one player in the draft this year who kind of fits that bill is Keegan Murray's twin brother, Chris Murray, who stayed in college an extra year. He's coming out this year. They look the same build. So he's someone who in theory could be drafted and play right away. He's going to be 22 years old, going on 23. But you're right. I'm totally with you. If the Warriors want to contend for a championship next year, you got to get veterans. You have enough youth. Moody and Kuminga are enough.
That's my point. Exactly. We have enough youth. And Billy in our comments saying Kobe and LeBron never played in college. They're 2 of the greatest players of all time. 2 of the greatest NBA players to ever touch the basketball and play in the league. So my point is, like, not, now everyone in the first round is an 18 and 19-year-old, it seems like. You know what I mean? And it's like, not all these players are going to be anywhere close to ready. And I don't know, like I said, I just have a whole, like I said, separate stink with the whole one and done culture and all that stuff, because all these players now are rushing to get into the draft because, you know what I mean? You stay too long in college, suddenly now you're too old and you want to go in while your stock is high. And I get all that, but sometimes I feel like it wouldn't hurt to develop a little bit and play in college and get more experience, but
Well, and for anyone who throws out Kobe, Garnett, LeBron as examples of, hey, these are high school players who found success. Why don't you also list off every other player came straight out of high school in those drafts? Because for every one of those players you list that is a success story, there's 10 of them that failed miserably. So there's a reason why the NBA reneged on allowing players to come in straight out of high school. Is they were undeveloped, they lacked maturity, and they were a much better product and a better human being with that 1 extra year, either in college or with one of the G leagues or these other professional leagues that are out now. And by the way, some folks in the chat mentioned Jordan Hawkins of UConn. Wouldn't mind him in the mock drafts I've seen. He's drafted way before 19, so he would not be available to the Warriors at that point. But yeah, I'm totally with you. And Steve White, Lauri Markkanen is a total beast, but highly doubt the Jazz will give him up. Someone else had a question too, which was about the salary cap and draft picks. I lost it. I can't find it now, but to answer your question, draft picks do not count for anything when it comes to trades and when it comes to the salary cap. So if let's say it's Jordan Poole and the Warriors' 19th pick in the draft this year for Kristaps Porzingis, hypothetically, that draft pick would count as a big fat 0 in terms of salary. I don't like that. I actually wish draft picks carried some value with them. It would make trading a lot easier and a lot more fun because you'd open up a lot more options. So I'm totally with you. I really wish the NBA would change that, because I don't know if the NBA always lived by that rule. I don't know if all leagues follow that rule. I know in some other sports, draft picks carry a certain monetary value in terms of trades to make salaries match and so forth. But no, it's just a big fat 0. It doesn't count for anything. Any last thoughts, Kylen, before we call it a Friday and a weekend?
I don't know. I'm excited next week to talk a little bit more about the free agent situation. My hope and prayer is just that the Warriors make a move I do not believe the Warriors roster as it was constructed this season, and you said at the beginning of the episode, is going to be a contender next season. I'm sorry, but it's not. Like, flat out, I think if we roll out the same lineup, give or take one or two players like a DDV who they can't retain, we're going to get the same result. So I just hope that the Warriors are making moves. But I also think that has to start with retaining Bob Myers. And I am an advocate for keeping Bob if they can. Although I know we talked in our last episode just about how that's, kind of back and forth. But I think a lot of dominoes are going to fall depending on whether he stays or goes. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out and how that impacts any moves the Warriors do or don't make. I think Bob will be here through the draft, but what will happen after that will be a big question mark. And if Bob goes, then, what's the next step? Who's going to be making these deals? I mean, there is a lot that could change for the Warriors, depending on how that situation plays out. And that'll be a huge factor in the way this summer shakes out. Is it going to be Bob Myers who's, like I said, wheeling and dealing, or is it going to be someone else?
Yeah.
So, a lot up in the air, and I think it's going to be super interesting to see. And, after Bob, then I think also the Draymond Green domino has to fall. I think he's going to sign an extension. I do. But, and then you got to start talking about the free agents who might be moving. And then who do we have left that we can trade? I mean, I think there should be some movement this summer.
Yeah. And we'll cover the free agents next week in regard to who the Warriors can add. Draymond, I just mentioned him a second ago. You're referring to Derek Lively II, who I would not mind. He actually is a legitimate talent coming out from Duke. But in my mock draft, he was drafted much sooner. He wasn't available for the Warriors in 19. Right. But we have a couple more minutes. I know I just said we're wrapping it up, and we are, but what are your thoughts? Someone brought up Ja Morant in the chat. Is it safe to say that he's an idiot? I mean, like you gave this impassioned apology publicly. You said, you expressed the fact that you're aware of how much what you have to lose, which is a lot. And then you just carry a gun in an Instagram live video again. It's just dumb. It's just, there's nothing. He's going to get suspended for a very long time. I don't doubt that. My guess is half the season next year. It's going to be 40, 50. He's going to be suspended 40, 50 games. That's my guess. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ja Morant?
I think it's unfortunate. I think the first time around, myself, and I know there were others in the media and some fans anyway, who were trying to extend him some grace. I mean, this is an example of something that I'm talking about. These players who come into the league super young that just aren't mature. And that aren't really ready to be living in a man's world and playing a man's game at 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. Like, when I look back at the way that, I was acting and behaving at 21, I didn't have it all figured out. And so I feel like this happens to some of these, stars who come into the game and immediately blow up at such a young age. And suddenly you have money at your disposal and, the world is your oyster, but you get thrust into fame and into fortune. And some players, just don't know how to handle it or don't necessarily have the maturity at a young age to handle it. And that's where I feel like the situation falls with Ja Morant. Like, he got thrown into the spotlight. And, we saw that he walked around with all the swag and stuff. And, he liked to walk around super confident, but this may be someone who just is immature. So I think it's unfortunate. He has such a high ceiling and he's such a fun player to watch. And I know Warriors fans don't like him particularly, and I understand that given the last couple of years of matchups against the Grizzlies. But, I enjoy watching Ja Morant. I think the Grizzlies definitely got a little bit cocky, but Ja Morant's a fun player to watch. Like, I want to see him continue to grow and develop in this league. And I just think it's unfortunate when you see a career so promising as his be derailed by something so stupid. And I mean, you're right in that it's just dumb. It's flat out dumb. But to me, like I said, I just feel like it's, a player who got thrust in the spotlight at a young age and doesn't know how to handle it. Is he 23? 23, right? I think he turned, he's 23. He's 23. Yep. He turns 24 this summer. So he has a lot of growing up to do. I honestly, his first apology, I know he made that first apology. I didn't think that or that sit down interview that he did. I don't know that with Jaylen Brown, I felt like he didn't necessarily get it, or Jalen Rose, sorry.
Jalen Rose, yeah.
I didn't feel like he necessarily got it through his head. So maybe this
Clearly
will
not.
be, yeah, clearly he didn't. So maybe this will be, the catalyst that helps him get back on track. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Absolutely. And no, the Grizzlies will not accept John Morant for Jaren Jackson Jr. Nice try, Roger Abe. I would love that as well. All right, so we'll discuss free agents next week. Interesting question was asked by David Toppy before we go. If Draymond doesn't come back, who starts in that power forward position? Let's just not even think about that at this moment, because if Draymond doesn't come back, the Warriors are screwed. At that point, yes.
Well, that's where they bring in like an OG Anunoby. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. But regardless, I mean, if Draymond doesn't come back, it's time. You're officially in the rebuild mode. Like you are not going to be competing for world championship next year, in my humble opinion. He's that important. So if he leaves, and especially given the fact you're getting nothing back in return for him, I mean, maybe the Warriors would try to get a sign and trade, but there's no guarantees that will happen either. So I don't want to think about that, but because it's the dynasty's officially over if that happens, in my humble opinion. I don't know. Any last thoughts, Kyle? I know I asked you that once, but I'll ask you one more time before we go.
Nope, that's all I got. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll be back at it next week. We'll talk about free agents, a lot more to come. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting summer for Warriors fans and media. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see you folks on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Kylen, thanks.